Alright. Are you ready for this thing? It's not fully flat.
I am ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Alright. Alright.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Dun, 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 dun,
Dun
dun,
dun
dun,
dun 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 dun.
Dude, you should listen to the entire soundtrack, the OST.
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. But anyway, let's get this proper introduction going. What
Proper.
is up, everybody? It is your
Hello.
boys, Jose Garcia, my son, Jacob Hernandez,
Yo.
coming at you with the second episode of the Father and Son podcast. Just a quick update, we just want to say thank you so much for the support on the past two videos, on the first podcast episode, both parts. Just thank you for that. Thank you for putting some time aside for at least watching our podcast and hopefully entertained you a bit. But other than that, I just want to start off with Jacob saying, how was your week? How are you doing? What's new?
My week, I've been chilling. Yeah. Been editing the podcast, getting it out on time, prepared.
And now we know how YouTube works.
Yeah, now that we know how YouTube works, so we don't get those technical difficulties.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've been chilling. What about you? I know you got a case of the sniffles.
Yeah, I got. I think my parents say it's allergies, but honestly, the day I felt like crap, like my teeth were hurting, like my roots were hurting, it was not good. But
Bro,
I feel a bit better now. I'm a little congested and my head hurts a bit, but other than that, I'm fine.
So
I'm looking away from the computer laptop, from the computer screen as we speak right now.
Oh, I feel that. Whenever I'm like 5 a.m. or whenever like I'm up at 5 a.m. and I'm still looking at the computer screen, my eyes are just bleeding.
What are you doing up at 5 a.m. on the computer screen?
I'm playing with friends. Yeah, I'm dying on the inside. I stayed up until like 4 a.m. editing the podcast. So
yeah, I know. I salute you for your sacrifice, sir.
I got lost in the editing.
But yeah, I'm good. I'm glad you're doing good. I mean, you finished AP test on the finals, if you have any and then after that, you're free for summer.
Free for summer. We'll get these out for summer and keep on rolling.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you had a good week. So we are going to start off with the music as always, and if you guys are interested, you will usually repeat the name of the artist and the songs at the end after the discussion we have. But last podcast, I went first. So Jacob, would you do the honors of starting to get into the nitty gritty?
All right. Well, I'll start getting into the nitty gritty. First off, for anybody who didn't watch the last two parts of the first episode, what we do on the podcast is basically we have a section for music. Each one of us has given the other one an album to listen to, so we're going to talk about it for a little bit right now in this first session, and then the next session we're going to talk about movies and shows. One each. We change it up from the first episode, just to let everyone know. If you didn't see the end of the second part, but to get into it, right now, OCL had recommended me Caress Your Soul by Sticky Fingers.
Yes.
Which was really nice. So
yeah, that band really loves JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. They named themselves after a stand.
I have seen one season of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
Was it the first season?
I saw the first season of that anime because one of my friends made me watch it, which it was fine. It was cool.
Yeah. No, but again, the band's name obviously a tribute to the Stones' '71 album, I believe. Sticky Fingers. So I kind of like that they're really into their rock. This band's like a combination of like rock and reggae, that sort of thing. But
yeah, no. So Caress Your Soul, when I listened to it, which was about an hour ago. So when I listened to it, I did get a very strong reggae feel.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was very rhythmic, and I kind of felt like I was going down a psychedelic little dream, like I was doing acid. But
Mm-hmm.
it was good, you know. I really dug their vibes that they had. One of the last songs on the album has a little guitar solo at the end, and I really enjoyed that because it did feel rock at soul, but it was also very much reggae, like you
Very
said.
much right. Yeah. I
And
also like the
I did love that. I thought that was awesome.
yeah. It's interesting to see how you're able to blend those two genres together because they're very different to the core. But when it's put together, at least when Sticky Fingers puts it together, it's actually a really good combination. You know, some songs mainly, well, at least that album from what I heard, because I heard that album and I heard their last album that came out in 2019, I believe. They really, at least now, like they're really more rock. There's a few reggae bits in there, but other than that's mainly rock compared to like the album I made you listen to. It's mainly reggae as opposed to rock.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's really good. And then I feel like that album really had a lot of meaning to it as well.
Which album? The album that you made
Caress Your
me
Soul.
well,
Yeah,
caress your soul.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely there definitely was some meaning to it. I didn't get like too deep into it because
Mm,
I don't know. I'm like,
yeah, eh.
yeah, I don't. For me, I enjoy music or I derive enjoyment from music mainly just through the sounds and how every instrument is pieced together.
Mm,
And that's why I enjoy a lot of music. You know, meaning is second to me. Well,
mm,
like if we were to talk about film though, it'd be a totally different thing.
yeah. No, I
But
understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I do appreciate this band, and there definitely was some meaning behind it. There was a lot of melancholy.
Yeah.
I sensed in the songs when I listened to the lyrics, and I don't know, I kind of it was like I got sad, but at the same time the music was happy, so I was feeling
Hmm.
happy, but like undertone of sadness, and I really like that. I like how music can sort of warp your feelings into that so in that way when you have that kind of when you have that combination of reggae and rock, you know,
Mm. Yeah, no,
because
that's
the
perfectly understandable.
yeah, because reggae is nice to tell because it's like you know you go to the beach and you listen to a lot of reggae, or at least
Hmm.
that's the kind of vibe I get from it. When you
Hmm.
get rock, it carries a whole different vibe too,
Yeah.
because there's plenty of good rock, um, like what is it, grunge, right?
Hmm.
So it's like a subgenre of rock,
Yeah.
but you know obviously the band Nirvana, right? There's a lot of
Hmm.
melancholy drawn into grunge, so you can so that kind of becomes synonymous with rock as well, or at least you know when you think of rock, you kind of can also think of sadness in there. So
Mm.
when you combine those two together,
Hmm.
I think it creates a great feeling, and that's what I felt
Yeah.
during listening to this 39-minute long album.
Album. Yeah.
I was, yeah, it's short but sweet, you know.
It's sweet. Yeah. Honestly, like when I went, because when I recommended you the album, because I heard this album a while back. I started listening to Sticky Fingers what freshman year, no, sophomore year of high school.
Mm,
So it's been a while since I've heard them, so I went back to listen to it, and I was just vibing. I think I snapped you just a picture of me like lying down with my headphones, and I was just vibing to the entire album.
mm,
It's because that's the kind of music they produce, and especially reggae. It's the kind of music you just lay down and like vibe to. You just lay down and not even think about it. You just let it. You just like let it go through your ears and like resonate with you, and you just like vibe, and it just creates like a cool, mellow feeling. And I really
mm,
like that about that album. My favorite song on the album was "These Girls," just because I like the meaning behind it. Kind of
mm,
like, from at least personally, from what I interpret it, it was kind of like, um, sort of like I think it was about porn addiction, if I remember it well. Because there's some, because he says like,
he fell in love with that girl on page 16, the centerfold in that old paper magazine, and it's just like, yeah, you could just like picture it, just like the centerfold paper magazine he's holding up, that girl that he
Mm,
so desperately fell in love with. And I feel like the meaning, at least the deeper meaning behind that, like the porn addiction sort of thing, is like trying to find love through something that's fake. And that was kind of
mm,
like you said, it was kind of melancholy. So it's just like, oh, like he's trying to find love, he's trying to find happiness and pleasure, something that's not real and something that's not true. And
mm.
I really liked that song just because it had a lot deeper meaning, and it was just really mellow too. It just like serenaded you.
Yeah, no, I wish I could remember them or the tracks, the tracks and names. But
Hmm.
um, I did love most of them though, because
Yeah,
of all that. And I definitely agree with you when you said how it's sort of a it's an album that you turn on and you just like listen to. You just lay there and you listen to it and
hmm,
let it go through your ears. You know, because
yeah,
that's kind of how I felt. Because I was just sitting in my chair listening to it while I was browsing the internet a little bit, and I don't know, it just kind of it it gave me that wave. It gave me that exact feeling where I would just like to sit down and listen to it, and it flowed through my
yeah,
ears and in and out, super smooth, and I loved every second of it. Really.
yeah. I really enjoyed that album. I really enjoy that band too. Especially, I think they have another album called Land of Pleasure.
Mm,
Another song, Rum Rage. That song is so aesthetically pleasing. You have it's like melancholic too. It's the reggae vibe sort of, but you have that. It's only the use of a guitar and a lot of backup vocals, and it's sort of like choir vocals. So it's just like like vocals layering on top of each other. It's really melancholic. It's really relaxing too. So like
mm.
to be able to see this from this band who's like mainly inspired by reggae and rock, it's really interesting to see how they were able to mix those two together.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, definitely.
yeah, I really enjoyed it. Another song I really enjoyed was Bootleg Rascal, just because that one that I think that one song from the album that was like truly fully reggae, because
Mm.
you have like that up and down of the beat and the bass, and then you just hear him like sort of singing slow, then rapping fast and singing slow, and it really that's that really reggae vibe that you usually get from like other artists or reggae artists, which I really enjoyed. I really like.
Yeah, no, I remember Bootleg Rascals being the most reggae there was over there or on
Yeah,
the album, and it was really nice to hear.
yeah, and I'm kind
Uh,
of surprised that this band's kind of like underrated. No, not underrated, but like uh, underground because they make really good music. I mean, it could be the fact that they're Australian and it's like not a lot of music from Australia gets through to the West, but
mm.
I think it's really good. And like if I feel like if they would move over here, they or not move over here, but if they were like, to release like more pop hitting or not pop hitting but chart hitting songs, like they'll probably get big over here too.
Well, that kind of surprises me because I thought they had a bit of a following. I didn't know they were underground, but
And
I guess since they are from Australia, it's a little bit harder to get here.
yeah, and also
But I mean,
oh, go ahead.
no, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
No, no, go ahead.
You're too nice.
I
No,
insist.
I insist. No, but what I was gonna say was that tapping my head. I was gonna say that they with their track record, or at least from what I've heard from Caress Your Soul,
Hmm.
feels like they have a radio hit just waiting to be
Discover.
like presented. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think waiting to be exposed exactly. Um, and I don't know how they haven't either. It's kind of crazy that way.
Yeah, and it's I mean they from not to say that they're pretty big in the well they aren't that big in the West, but they do or at least they did hit some prominence like a couple years ago. I mean like way back they went on a tour I think with Ozzy Osbourne. They were his opening act. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
so
cool.
like They were really, I think, big in Australia. It's like enough to like get Ozzy Osbourne's attention. But yeah, I
Well, I
f-
mean, I'm sure because they sound like they have really high production quality.
no, yeah, they
Like,
do definitely.
yeah.
And I also think it's mainly because of their genre too, sort of reggae. And now that you
Hmm.
think of it, there isn't a lot of, or at least when you listen to like radio hits or like if you go on Spotify and see what's up, there's really not a lot of reggae anymore. Or reggae didn't hit, doesn't have a lot of more prominence than it did like back in like the '90s, early 2000s. You know, with Sublime, uh, early 2010s, The Expendables, and things like that. So I feel like reggae really has gone down a bit as
Well,
a
yeah,
genre.
yeah. No, as a genre, I think there's definitely a whole. When I listened to radio, because I was actually driving around today, and my phone was at like 3%, so I didn't want to waste the battery plugging it into the aux cord. So when I was listening to the radio, there was no reggae involved at all. It was just all alternative or Ariana Grande, you know.
Yeah.
So them filling that hole and also adding the little rock element to it to make it sound different than other reggae songs. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's great, and I think they really should continue that because eventually, someone's gonna miss it. Because when I was listening to it, I was thinking of the beach. I was thinking of LA, places that you would probably turn that album on and listen to it while you're strolling through those places because
Yeah.
it fits the vibe and
Hmm.
I think they would particularly make a great beach like band, you know.
Yeah.
And you go to the beach and they usually people have like separate playlists for that.
Hmm.
And when you go over there, I think I would definitely put their album on and be like,
Yeah.
hey, let's listen to this shit because it's good, you know?
Yeah, it's understandable. Like, at least when I listen to this album and I think of this album, it's kind of, at least for me, I would personally love to listen to this album like sitting outside, like watching a sunset, or just like lost in my own thoughts. That's kind of like at least the vibe that the album gives me, and like what I would like to listen, or like in that state of mind, I would like to listen to the album because it's just something to lose yourself in, and like not really pay attention to the stuff that's going on around you or outside of your bubble per se. And it's just
Mm,
kind of like something to like enclose yourself with and like let your mind go free with it.
mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, definitely.
yeah.
But
But again, I really enjoyed that album. For me, it was a good, say 7.5 out of 10. How about you?
that's it. I'd probably give it a good 8 out of 10. Some
8 out of
I
10.
haven't really heard before, so I really enjoyed listening to like a new tune, and I think I'll probably add it to a playlist, just
Yeah,
to just because I fuck with it,
yeah, yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That's good.
But now you had an album that I recommended you to listen
Yes,
to.
I did. I got the album was by Mars Volta, and the album was Deloused in the Comatorium.
Deloused in the
Deloused.
Comatorium.
Deloused in the Comatorium.
No.
And I really like the album, especially just the titles of it. They really caught my attention of the songs.
Yeah.
You know, Son et Lumiere, Ineretic, ESP, Roulette Dares, Tirame a las Arenas. A lot of like Spanish titles, a lot of like different titles. And I really enjoyed their music. It sort of gave me, at least for me, a mixture of between My Chemical Romance and Pink Floyd
Okay.
for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Pink Floyd vibe that it gave me was because of the length of the songs and the sort of storytelling that it does. And
Oh,
the reason, yeah,
you
no,
don't know how long these songs can go for.
no, dude, I can understand. Come on, if I listen to Shine on Crazy Diamond, all parts put together, it's like a good 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, no, they have a good 35-minute song.
Mm.
It's my favorite. But
Yeah.
no, go on though. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, I really that's what gave me the Pink Floyd vibes. And also another thing they did like Pink Floyd was they gave that ominous noise or that ominous music or that intro bit, sort of like how would I say it, an orchestral piece. You know how they
Mm,
have their beginning, their middle, their climax, and then their end. I
yeah,
feel like most of their music was like that as well, especially the lengthier ones. I think it was. Hold up, let me check. Cicatriz ESP, I believe it was.
that's that's about 12 minutes long.
Yeah, Cicatriz
Yeah.
ESP. I really like that song just because of the length of it and like the sort of vibe it gave me.
Mm,
And also, what I like about what they did was, at least when I paid attention to the album, and I like at the time each song rang.
mm,
Some songs were shorter than other. Like it'd be a short song, then a longer song, then a short song again, then a longer song again, and it really
mm,
gave, well, at least the listener, that's sort of like breaks in between to like, okay, let me like recollect my thoughts and go on to the next one.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I really like. That's the kind of Pink Floydish movement I got. Another thing,
Mm,
the reason I got My Chemical Romance vibes was because the way the lead singer sang, it kind of reminded me of the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. You know that high, like grudgy, like edgy teenage voice, like that.
yeah.
But give and take, like he's an amazing lead singer. I kind of like the way his vocals worked with the music because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
didn't they didn't overshow the instrumental parts, the guitar, the drums, and the bass, and everything behind it. It kind of blended in. It was at the same level
Mm,
of the instrumental, so it was all even. It was all one thing, so you could hear everything at the same time, and not have to, train your ear to listen to his voice, and then after his voice, the instrumentals, and go back and forth. It was all at the same time,
mm.
and I
It's
really
almost
did
like
enjoy about them. What you're
it's
saying?
almost it's almost like the vocals are an instrument or become an instrument.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what kind of I liked about it because it was used as an instrument as well. Like it blended in. I couldn't tell, or at least I could very distinctly listen to the vocals, but more or less I heard the instruments as well. So it was kind of at that same plane. I really enjoyed about because it really gives you the ability to listen to both the vocals and the instruments at the same time. Because a lot of people focus on their vocals or what they're trying to say, and then not on the
Mm,
instrumental. While others focus, like you, they focus on the instrumental, not meaning of the lyrics or the lyrics themselves.
yeah.
So yeah, it's everybody's well, it's like it's everybody's choice what they want to listen to, of course. But I really liked that they were able to produce that.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things when I was listening to this band, because I was recommended this a long time ago by my brothers
Hmm.
who really love this band. One of the things that struck out to me the most was how they mixed English and Spanish,
Hmm.
and how strategically they mix the two
Yeah.
to sort of or convey different passions, I guess,
Hmm.
or keep the same passion level. Uh,
Yeah.
either one, because I know some things sound a lot more passionate in Spanish than if you were to say it in English.
Yeah. Like kind of
So
cicatriz. It's just like
it,
cicatriz. But if you're saying it in
yeah,
English, it's just scar. It doesn't sound as it doesn't roll off the tongue as well as cicatriz.
yeah, no. So when the lead vocalist, who writes the lyrics, when he talks about, or when he changes up the language, it's very strategic as to when he does it, so then he can keep the same level of passion in his singing, which I really loved. And
Mm-hmm.
even though I don't understand a lot of Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's still it still resonated with me. I
Yeah.
still loved the song, even more because it was so different to me because I've never heard it before. I've never heard anybody do that before.
Mm. No, yeah, it was kind of at least for me, it was kind of different. It was kind of new to see something like sort of like grudgy rock, sort of mixing like those Spanish song titles and like the French song titles as well.
Yeah,
It kind of just shows like that difference of cultures and like the mixing of cultures together. And I really thought that held like a deeper meaning. Of course, I didn't
yeah,
know. I don't know what that deeper meaning is, but I know that there is one. And another thing I like about the album as well was the fluidity of it. Because with the first two tracks, if I remember well, yeah, Sonnet Lumiere, it as soon as it finishes, it's like a minute and something long. But you don't even hear it finish, and then next thing you know it, you're in I can't pronounce it. In Inertiatic ESP, and it just
Yeah.
blends into that song immediately, and that's what I kind of like. Because if you think about it, most albums they have that one song starts, it ends, another song starts, it ends, another song starts, it ends. Meanwhile, this album has a fluidity to it. It's all one big thing. So you start off with a 1 minute and something intro, and then out of nowhere you get straight into it, and it gives you some sort of time. That's what I think. That's what the ominous music is there for. It's kind of to blend in that blend in, or at least to take the place of that sort of abrupt stop to the song
Mm.
and then begin another one. That's why I really like the ominous music, or at least the long intros to begin with, because it sort of serves as a substitute for those long pauses, and it really brings more value and more originality to the album itself.
No, definitely. And then in their subsequent album that they released after this, Francis the Mute,
Mm-hmm.
they took that to an extreme where the long pauses you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
or like the long stretched out sequences of building tension,
Mm-hmm.
they take it a step further, and every song you can count on like a minute or two, or even longer, of just bringing out that tension. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really it's interesting. Sometimes it gets annoying when you're like trying to figure out what like when one of the songs starts and when one of them ends.
Mm-hmm.
But this is definitely like an album you don't just go around in the car and listen to, kind of,
Yeah.
except for like a few songs.
Mm-hmm.
This is an album that you have to sit down and listen to, really,
Yeah.
in one sitting.
Sort of has to grab your attention. It sort of serves to grab your attention. He's like, "Ooh, what is this ominous music?" And then
Yeah.
bam, hits you with the song, and then oh, what's this? Why is there more ominous music? And bam, like that. So it's kind of like an attention grabber, per se.
Yeah, definitely. And I really liked, so this used to be my favorite song of all time. It was Televators. It's it's the ninth song in the album.
Yeah.
But it takes a complete left turn as to like the theme built up in the rest of the album.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked it because it took more of a Spanish vibe
Mm-hmm.
uh, to how the music was played. I think it's mainly just acoustic guitar, and
Yeah.
then it has these amazing vocals by the lead singer, which I think fit because he goes from yelling to just being really quiet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then Televators is a great example of building up the tension to higher and higher um, heights, I guess,
Yeah.
until you finally get that release and
Mm-hmm.
everything starts flowing together like the rest of the album. And I really loved it. And I remember watching a YouTube video that had Televators on it, but in the
Mm-hmm.
background there was this animatic of a poem called "The Hangman," and
Mm-hmm.
it fit perfectly the vibe of
Mm-hmm.
just a man getting hanged, really, or because the story of the poem goes that a hangman comes into town and talks and says that he's going to he's going to hang one person a day until like the right person comes up to them,
Mm-hmm.
and so he starts hanging everybody. Everybody becomes sort of the victim and stuff until finally the last person is there, and he reveals that he was the one that the hangman was searching for, or it goes something like that. And then um, the guy is left in a town with no friends or nobody anymore, just because he didn't come up to be like, hey, I would be the one, like eternal suffering. I thought it
Mm-hmm.
fitted very well. and I really liked it. I looked up the poem, and the poem's really nice. It's awesome. But to sort of get into the background of Deloused and the Comatorium, so the Mars Volta is a band that was made after At the Drive-In broke up, which had their own little following, and is a lot more yelling and
Grudgy, edgy.
yeah, more grungy, a lot more passionate. And they're based off of El Paso in Texas, so that's how you get these sort of mixture.
Spanish sort of.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, that makes more sense now.
yeah, where you and El Paso is right on the edge or right on the border between Texas and Mexico.
Let's go. Uh-huh.
So that sort of blending of cultures is definitely represented in their music. And The Last in the Comatorium is just their first album from the new band that they made, and this whole album is dedicated to their friend who I think died. What are you scratching, bro?
Huh? Oh no, sorry. It's because there's the screen, and I'm trying to block it. There we go. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So this whole album is dedicated to their friend who I think was rehabilitated, or not was rehabilitated, but was in the hospital for doing just a ton of fucking drugs. And
Sid Barrett, Pink Floyd.
yeah, and becoming so depressed after that he jumped out of the window and died.
Jeez.
Yeah, and this whole album is sort of every song builds up to sort of his, or talks about his mental psyche at the time, because I think they found some of his writings and stuff where they were like enemies in this. I think it starts with the T, but they start like those guys would be called the drugs, and it would just be trying to, or would represent drugs, and the main character in this would try and fight them, but obviously couldn't, and decides to, or dies at the end and jumps out of the window of the hospital, and it was just dedicated to his mental state and his memory, really, so to sort of pay their own respects to him, which was
which is kind of like their way of saying, like, we salute you, and that's why I told you, like, I kind of got the Pink Floyd vibe. And now that you told me the story, it doesn't sound exactly alike, but it's kind of similar. The way Sid Barrett, after he did a lot of drugs, and the way he slowly lost touch of reality with fantasy from all the drugs he did, and I think that's what I think. And then I think "Wish You Were Here." I think that was their album, just saying like their disillusionment about what the music industry is really like, and also like a sort of tribute to Sid Barrett. Because, you have Shine On, Crazy Diamond. You also have Wish You Were Here. Just kind of about him, too. That's what I said that I really got the Pink Floyd vibe from. And honestly, after hearing that, it's definitely a Pink Floyd vibe.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see the parallels between the two.
Yeah. But other than that, I really enjoyed the album. As I said, its fluidity. Another album, at least the only other album that I've heard that mixes, or that it's one continuous flow, is Tyler the Creator's Igor. When my album first came out, 2019, 2018? That when I was listening to it on my way to school, it's just I was walking for like a good 10 minutes, and I thought I was on the same song. I'm just like, oh, I wonder what the name of the song is, why it's so long, and then it turns out I was on like the third or fourth song. I'm just like, oh, alrighty then. I missed like 3 other songs before this, but yeah. Like, other than that, like, it's really, really odd to see an album have fluidity like that and connect all in one piece to sort of tell this story. Yeah. But other than that, it's good. The album I rate a good, I want to say 7 out of 10. Just because I never really got into the much like grungy side, but it was a different view. And after like you telling me this, I'll probably go back and listen to it more and see if I can hint at, or at least try to hint at and understand the deeper meaning of the song. Because I really did enjoy that album. Again, the fluidity, the vocals, the lengths, the way they're able to tell one piece, or at least an entire story within one album, and sort of like the orchestral structure it has. But yeah, how about you? You rated this album what? 10 out of 10? Is it your favorite
I
album?
see this album. Well, I should say the band is my favorite band of all time.
Mm.
So I think this album, Deloused and the Comatorium, would probably be for me a 9 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Just because Francis the Mute is a 10 out of 10, and there's
Mm.
there's no there's no album that goes or that surpasses it to me. But also, I was just reminded this before we get into the shows and movies section, and I know we're really passionate about that.
Yeah.
I remembered that the guy who did the album art for The Lost in the Comatorium, you know the really famous Pink Floyd album where it's the triangle and then the rainbow that
Dark Side
splits
of the
from
Moon?
it? Dark Side of the Moon?
I believe
Same
that's what
guy.
it's called. Really?
Same guy who made
wow.
that album cover, or that album art, made this one.
Oh.
So just to link it even more, just a little bit more, some nice trivia that I just remembered now and I forgot to tell you.
Yeah, it's Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah,
And,
Dark Side of the Moon, same guy.
yeah. And I feel like at least I don't want to say that this band was heavily or like withdrew a lot from Pink Floyd, but I feel like they were really influenced by Pink Floyd just because Pink Floyd really had a lot of meaning and their music really touched a lot of people and it really spoke to a lot of people as well. So I feel like that's why I see the parallels between the Mars Volta and Pink Floyd a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely. You could definitely see the parallels in that. Again, I love this album. My favorite band. and a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for sure.
Right, you heard it here. So in case you guys wondering, Caress Your Soul by Sticky Fingers, a good short album. You know, if you like reggae or if you just want to chill to something, that's a good album as well. That's a good album. And The Loss of the Comatorium by Mars Volta. Feeling down, feeling depressed, that's your album. And yeah, again, these are really good albums. This is really good music. So if you guys really want to, change up what you're listening to and really extend your horizons, and during this quarantine, if you have the time, why not just go for it? But yeah, that's our music for this podcast, and now we are moving on to the shows and movies. But before that, I just want to say, I think it's time we blow the scene. Everybody in the band together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam. All right. So, Jacob, do you want to say what I recommended you to watch?
Okay, yes. So this is in our second section where we talk about movies and shows. And this week I only have one show to talk about that OCL recommended me, which has become one of my favorite animes of all time, called Cowboy Bebop. And straight off the bat, I have to say one thing, and this is something that this anime should be proud of, right? And that I am proud of it for. This is the only anime that I've never skipped the opening song.
Yeah, honestly, you shouldn't have skipped the intro to Neon Genesis Evangelion because that is a bop in itself. But I personally agree. This is one of the animes that you cannot skip the intro to because it never gets old.
Exactly. I mean, like for Evangelion, which was last week, I watched it once and then I never watched it again because I thought it was cool, but I don't know. I think for me something was lacking. But when I go into Bebop,
it's something you watch over and over again.
Oh, all 26 episodes, all 14 hours, or 13 hours that I spent. 14 hours that I spent watching. Not once did it ever get old. I want to talk about the title sequence so much because I love it so much.
Dude, I know, it's so awesome.
Wait, okay. So I just kind of want to summarize this show really quick, and then we'll get into everything.
Mhm.
Just as a warning, because we didn't say it last time, spoilers are ahead.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you don't want to get spoiled or spoiled for Cowboy Bebop, this is not your podcast to watch. You should have already watched these, or you should not care about spoilers. And halfway through this, watch it, and then
Yeah.
come back. But as as a little bit of a rundown, so Cowboy Bebop just follows the adventures of Spike Spiegel, Jet Black, Faye Valentine, and
And
Edward something something something.
and
So
and Ein.
and Ein, of course, can't forget Ein. They're basically called the Bebop Crew, and they're a crew of bounty hunters, and the whole show is revolving around them and their adventures. Some are silly. Usually, they get pretty deep and hit pretty hard
Mhm.
at points. I almost cried at some points because it was so emotional.
Yeah.
But you know, this film or this show brings you up, but it can also bring you down a whole lot with some of the stories, and it's really interesting. The overarching story with Spike Spiegel is amazing, and it's something you should definitely experience, and we'll get into as we talk about Cowboy Bebop. But
Yes.
that is basically the summary of it. I hope that's okay. And now the
Okay.
title sequence.
Yes. The title sequence. All right. So in the title sequence, I don't know if you noticed, but there was pictures of words. And I don't know if you could have read it or not.
I
But
tried. I tried so hard.
title cards. Hold up. Let's see if I can find it. No, no. But they. Let me see if I found one.
I
No.
know in parts it's like in the year 2071.
71. Yeah.
Yeah.
They. It says a lot. And it also says a lot about what the director was trying to go through. Because it says, if I remember well, it goes something like in the year 2071, a crew, something like by the Bebop, will do things with no fear of risky things, mixing up genres and something like that. And it went on a lot more talking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it really is, as you read, um, or not as you read, but as you watch the show, you really see what they go through, all the risks they take, the gambles, the risks they run their lives just to get, a quick bounty. And yeah, I really think it's interesting what that says about the show as well. And
Oh.
I kind of really enjoyed it. Honestly, I really enjoyed it as an anime. When I first watching it, I got recommended. It got recommended by my friend Aiden, who watches
Mm.
this podcast as well. So I'd like to give a
Nice.
shout out to him for recommending me this because it is okay. Here we go. Found it. It says, then in 2071, in the universe, the bounty hunters who are gathering in spaceship Bebop will play freely without fear of risky things. They must create new dreams and films by breaking traditional styles. The work, which becomes a new genre itself, will be called Cowboy Bebop.
It's
And I
amazing.
really thought, and it goes more into it because if you pause it every once, like there's a pause for like a commercial break, you should read more. It talks about like saying that this show isn't technically a space opera, but it's because Star Wars is more like a space opera. This is more like a space adventure in space, and it involves more jazz than orchestral pieces and things like that. And it really
Oh.
nibbles and dissects down to like what or how the show in itself all connects together. The music, the genres it uses to portray the storyline. And I really enjoyed that about the anime because it's just a cluster of different things as well.
Hmm. Yeah. No, it is a combination of a whole bunch of genres, which I really loved. It was a lot of Western genres too. It
Hmm.
wasn't the it wasn't typically Eastern Asian genres that they mixed in, which made me recognize it a lot more. And
Yeah.
I think I kind of fell in love with it a little bit more too because I love my Western genres.
Yes. Yes, you do.
I'm a Western boy. I love gangsters, I love everything that has to do with America and the Western Hemisphere. So you know how it is. You know how it
Yeah,
is.
but yeah, that Cowboy Bebop in itself, it's an anime that uses sci-fi noir and Oh yeah, it's anime, sci-fi, noir, and westerns. So it's a mixture of completely different genres. And what I really like is the creator, Watanabe, the creative
Mm.
director. He said that he that in order to create something original, you have to mix yourself with different traditions. Because if you only stick to one tradition, it's not original. It's just the same thing as any other thing. And originality is really the key when creating something new, and creating something that you really want to last a long time. So I really
Mm.
like that his mixture of jazz, of the sci-fi genre, the depicting of the sci-fi genre, the noir, the western bits. I really enjoyed that because it all flowed together, and I think this is one of the animes that's mostly influenced by its soundtrack. Because if you think about it, if you go watch back all of that, cancel out the jazz and the music that's playing in the cutscenes, and replace it with something like rock or hip hop, it just won't feel the same. But if you
Mm.
input that jazz, it has a lot more impact and a lot more meaning. And the directive creator and the director creator was working with a band called the Seatbelts. They were a jazz band in Japan,
Yeah,
and
they
the
performed the opening song "Tank," I
yes,
believe.
and the leader, I forgot her name's, I think Yoko.
Yo,
She Yoko, right?
Yoko, Yoko
Yeah,
Kanno.
yeah, Yoko Kanno. And she would give the director, pieces of music, and those pieces of music would help him create new scenes and new things for the show. And that's why I say that I think this is one of the animes that is really heavily based on its music.
Oh yeah, no, I really could not imagine Cowboy Bebop without its music. But also,
Yes.
just to touch on like a sort of universal thing, is
Hmm.
whenever you do see like a really good movie or a really good show, I really think um, its music uh, its music becomes synonymous with it. And then when you
Hmm.
try and take away that music, it just doesn't work.
It
Uh,
just doesn't work. Yeah.
I would get into our next movie about that, but I'm not going to yet. So I'm going to
Yeah.
take Star Wars, for example, another
Hmm.
sci-fi thing. Like you said, it's more of a sci-fi opera than anything. But you can't imagine Star Wars without its John Williams score. It's just
Exactly. Yeah.
synonymous with Star Wars, right? It's the same thing with Cowboy Bebop. You can't imagine it without the real folk blues. Like
Hmm.
no
Yes.
one can tell me otherwise. All right,
Yeah. And
and
especially,
it's amazing.
yeah, and you could also see by the name of the episodes they're named after jazz sessions. You have session 10, Heavy Metal Queen. You have the Honky Tonk session
Yeah,
number 1, session number 2, and all the songs
yeah,
were really good. They were really smart on the titles because they played along with the episode and the music as well. You have a Waltz for Venus, Waltz for Zizzy, um,
I love it.
Ballad of Fallen Angels, and a lot of
Bohemian Rhapsody.
yes, Heavy Metal Queen. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all those titles and all those things really worked well together,
Mm.
and I really enjoyed that show. And you want to talk about the film elements that it included?
Well, some elements are included. Well, all of the different genres that it added.
Yeah, you're right.
Um,
You're right. You're right.
so, all right, it's gonna take me a little while to really get all my thoughts out on this. To start with the opening too. Um, there's a section in the opening uh, title sequence where there's a gun that's pointed at you. There's three
Hmm.
different sections for this gun, and they both fire, or they all fire at different points or at different beats of the music.
Hmm.
Now that kind of reminded me of the Great Train Robbery, which was I forget his name, Thomas Jefferson's or Thomas Edison's first film with Edwin Porter,
Mm.
where at the end there's this little bandito
Hmm.
who is facing his gun and his whole body towards the viewer, towards the camera, and
Hmm.
shoots his gun like three or four times. That
Mm.
reminded me of that, and I thought it was amazing. Also, I thought the animation was amazing for it because it was really dramatic, and the lines just started to get more and more warped, which just it was eye candy. It was so much great eye candy.
Hmm.
Um, so it kind of reminded me of that. There were some episodes that really dive into this Western theme
Yeah.
because because when you pitched, you didn't pitch me the show, but when you told me to watch the show, you had said that it was the best space western show that there ever was. So I was sort of expecting, because in my work mind, western is like the top genre for everything.
Mhm.
I was expecting a lot more western. Glad that it's nice hodgepodge of genres. But I remember this one episode being the most western when they were trying to catch something Boomer or Teddy Bomber.
Yeah, and
Um,
then the other guy that's like Spike. Yeah.
the other guy, Andy, like it was so amazing when I heard that classic Western whistle, and then just
Mhm.
Andy ride in with a
The horse.
with a horse, and it pokes fun of the Western genre too, which I kind of really liked, on how most of the actors, like say John Wayne, I mean
Mhm.
he's a man's man, and he was
Yeah.
on the first waves of westerns, classics like The Searchers and Stagecoach.
Mhm.
But it kind of pokes fun because there were a lot of people that were just rich and playing those parts,
Mhm.
playing the Western parts, and then seeing this guy who's just like a total blockhead, being just a clueless rich guy who thinks Spike is Teddy Bomber instead of actually Teddy Bomber.
Yeah.
I thought it was really funny because it poked fun at that, and then at the very end it just went full western where they both had their guns and they were just
Yeah.
chasing after each other at the top. It was
No.
amazing, and when it gets to that point, everything turns orange like in a classic western when you're at the desert scenery,
Mhm. Yeah,
and
the
it's
sunset.
just yeah, and I was just like, oh,
No, I like the
that's the
end
one.
because it kind of pokes at Ronin films as well. Because if you think
Oh
about it,
yeah,
Ronin films are the equivalent of Western films in Japan because it talks about it usually has the same storyline, and I thought it was really funny on how it poked at the Western and then after that like the Ronin because it was really similar the way he changed from this gunslinging cowboy to a sword the katana wielding samurai in
yeah,
place, and he even changed the name of his horse too. So I thought that was funny, and you see him looking for something new and poking at that genre as well. But yeah, like the
yeah,
Western element, and also it pokes at the Western element as well as this plot line and the storyline goes. You have people um, running away from their past or who have a really deep and rooted past, and they somehow their past always comes up to them, or they can't really function in society well because of their past, and that really speaks a lot to Spike Spiegel because he was uh, he was a Red Dragon Syndicate hitman, and that
yeah,
was sort of an equivalent Western. That's sort of like he was a bandit, or he was somebody, or he was involved with some group. And then he
yeah,
left that life, and he's wandering all alone, with another group, or he's wandering by himself, but hunting bounties, trying to scrape a living. And that really poked at like the westerns, or usually the westerns you see made back in like the early 1900s, because you usually have that lone ranger, lone wolf sort of thing, and that was Spike. And I really liked how they portrayed that, and how after every episode it deeply, or you saw more of Spike's past and saw how all of that related back to him and what he was inevitable to face.
yeah. No, the Western when you talk about that and Spike Spiegel's character, the Western that comes to mind to me is Shane,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fantastic what is called or what is dubbed an anti-Western, where
Yeah.
it was during the time where they were trying to strip away the Western um, or the what is it the iconic Western sort of uh, tropes like how we have in superhero movies today.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, where it was stripping it down and showing what are the real consequences of that. And Cowboy Bebop sort of acts the same the way that Shane did.
Mm-hmm.
He used to be a cowboy. He used to be a killer, but then he turned. Well, it's very very different from Spike. But he left that life and turned into a different person,
Yeah.
and went around doing his own stuff. It's interesting. Also, another film that just came up to me. It's a Clint Eastwood film called Unforgiven. It was his
Mm-hmm.
last Western, and that one also ties in really well to Spike's character because again, he used to be a cowboy, and
Mm-hmm.
he left that life because he was such a ruthless killer, and
Yeah.
his wife left him, so he didn't want to do that anymore, and then went back to the life, just to sort of clear up things. And Spike at the end goes back to the syndicate. Well, doesn't like join them,
But he
but
goes
goes
back to
back.
finish them.
Yeah, he
That's why he
goes
kills
back.
Vicious and
Yeah,
everything.
he goes back to finish him and do the right thing. You know, like how he was always trying to do. And that's the same thing with Unforgiven. He goes back into that life to do the right thing again, like losing people along the way, which really sucked. But again, these are anti-westerns, and Cowboy Bebop is very smart and definitely goes along with those sort of anti-westerns, bringing down the tropes of the western and showing how the realities of a person who is stagnant, you know, how it really affects them and their past. I thought that was really interesting. But also, there were a lot of points in this show that I was reminded of a lot of gangster movies. All of the shootouts.
Honky Tonk Woman, when we were introduced to Faye.
Yeah, definitely. That to me, it gave me that entire episode gave me a Casino vibe. It's a great Martin Scorsese movie, great gangster movie in general. With just the whole entire feel, and Faye Valentine definitely felt like a classic noir femme fatale.
Yes.
Just to sort of speak to how they're like is noir inside of a gangster, inside of a western. Like it's crazy how that episode is. It's really crazy. But you know, to get into more western parts, when Vicious, who is Spike's like arch nemesis now, used to be friend, when Vicious takes over power and starts the coup against the Red Dragon Syndicate, it reminded me a lot of The Godfather, when Michael Corleone consolidates power and kills all of the heads of the family to have, to consolidate his own power, so that he'd be the highest ranking member in the mafia.
Yeah.
So, and then there was a lot of scenes of guys from the syndicate just coming around the corner and shooting with little Uzis. And again, classic gangster movie.
Yeah.
Classic tropes.
No, yeah, and that's what I really enjoyed about it too, and also the effects that they use. You know, you have the dark places, and then the only thing that's lighting up the place is the gunfire that everybody's shooting at each other.
Yeah.
And it really gave off like kind of like what you said, that western, that gangster sort of vibe, because it's just that doo doo doo. Sometimes you see it in only shots too, like every time somebody shoots a shot, and yeah, the western tropes, the western elements of it, I really enjoyed as well, and especially the my mind just stopped, but because I told you, at least I told you, like it was very western in sort of its way, you know, usual storyline, lone wolf goes something, tries to redeem himself, but then usually just ends up going back the way he came from. You're just going back to the wild, like in Shane. You know, he sees that his ways aren't meant for the type of life that the family he was with, or that his skills and his life wasn't what the family needed in their life, so he just went back onto the wild. And I feel like that's what happened with Spike as well. And you know, he used to live a life. He went out to the wild, met somebody, and then realized that his past was catching up with him too soon. So he just left, you know, to go confront his past again, and that's what usually happens. But usually in westerns, like I said before, like when they confront their past, they usually just go back to the way they were, go back where they came from. You know, in this case, in Shane, he goes back to the wild. In this case, in Spike Spiegel's case, he goes back to the syndicate just to finish this off, and he faces his past and finally accepts who he is and what he did. So, and I really enjoyed that, and also um, the way they use Spike Spiegel's eyes to convey that meaning of his past. When he said, "One eye sees the present, and oh, one of these eyes is fake. I got it replaced. I got it replaced in a surgery. One of them sees the past, and the other sees the present." And I really thought that that really spoke a lot. That had a lot deeper meaning because it says One Eye sees the past. So One Eye just remembers everything that he used to do, while other one is like the here and now.
Hmm.
And he can't look at those things at the same time. It has to be either one thing or the other. So I really enjoyed that deeper meaning that they used with his eyes as well.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that too because I remember when they first talked about that, I didn't get it, and then finally when you get to the Real Folk Blues Part Two, the
Hmm.
26th episode of the series,
Yeah,
he reveals that, and I was astounded because I was like, whoa, that's deep right there.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know he lost his eye.
No, yeah, and it just shows how he's constantly running back to his past, or his past is constantly catching up to him. And I really enjoyed that Western element, and also the sci-fi element as well, because it's not your usual, the Jetsons, Star Wars sort of thing, where it's like all flashy, all high tech
Mm,
inventions and things like that. Of course, they have space travel, they have things like that. But if you think about it, it really stuck in the 1990s. When you look at the episode Heavy Metal Queen, the
mm.
trailers, they're still using radios to communicate. They're still in those cramped little trucker spaces, with those usual 1990s, 1980s trucker ornaments. And it's just really depicted sci-fi not as the glamorous thing, like, oh, future advanced technology, more of just like, eh, it's just you same old with just spaceships. And I
Mm.
really enjoyed that. That really spoke a lot about the sci-fi element, and also, yeah, just a lot like that. The space battles with the spaceship, A1. I really love those battle scenes. The battle scenes were
Yeah,
so fluid.
they were, and I want to get to the fluidness of the animation, but
Mm-hmm.
just to say, just to add on to your point on how everything wasn't like super futuristic, I would actually say that when I saw how like grungy everything looked, like
Mm-hmm.
say Spike's what was it, little starship or
Mm-hmm.
little spaceship called Swordfish,
Yeah,
how there's all these dents, all these scratches. It doesn't look, you know,
new, shiny.
futuristic. Yeah, it doesn't look new, shiny at all. It just looks like a beat up old car, like a beat up old Chevy truck.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, it's reliable, but and it's loved,
Yeah.
but it's not exactly like a show off car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everything. That goes for every spaceship that you see in in the show. Everything just has a bit of dirt on it,
Yeah.
and that actually reminded me of Star Wars because there's
Mm-hmm.
there's Death Star, and I remember watching this documentary about George Lucas and his creation of the Death Star on how they wanted, on how it was originally going to be white and super clean, super pristine, but then
Mm-hmm.
he decided to make it gray,
Yeah.
and he decided to make it a bit more dirty, like it had been out in space for a while,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just what would be more realistic. Everything's a bit dirty, it's a little
Yeah.
bit grungy, now not to the same extent as Cowboy Bebop,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it just reminded me of that because if you look at Star Wars, you know everything does look a bit more grungy. Look at the Millennium Falcon,
Yeah.
and it's not at its prime. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you look at the Death Star; it's a bit dirty, and you look at Luke's ships or
Mm-hmm.
Luke's ship. It's a bit beat up and worn out too. You
Yeah.
know, just it just reminded me of those things, but just a bit, and
Yeah.
I really liked how, to me, it kind of called out for that. And
No, yeah, it's perfectly understandable, and that's what I really enjoyed because usually, at least now that I've seen it, like most like sci-fi films now usually depict, or they try to depict the reality of it, like what would it really look like,
yeah,
and I kind of agree with that. Things are old, they're beat up, they're worn out. And I kind of really like that. Also adds to the aesthetic too. Like you said, it has that grudginess to it. It has that sort of like old but still good vibe,
it
and I
actually
really enjoyed that.
it actually reminds me a lot of a western, a spaghetti western specifically, not Hollywood westerns,
Mm,
um, because one of the big differences between Hollywood westerns and spaghetti westerns, which are made in Italy,
they have
um,
pasta.
they have pasta, obviously. But main Hollywood westerns, the heroes were really clean, the villains were really clean, and the sets were really clean. But it was in the middle of a desert. Now,
Yeah.
if you go to a spaghetti western, everything's dirty. The heroes are dirty, villains are dirty, and the setting is dirty. The boards are 10 feet apart, and you
Yeah.
can barely walk through them. Everything squeaks. I mean, it's like a regular western, uh,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a lot more. It's a lot more represented in the set design. One of the greatest westerns of all time. Once Upon a Time in America, there's this great tavern scene
Hmm.
where they, where Jill and the stagecoach driver goes into this to the tavern, and
Hmm.
the roof of it has little lines that little sunbeams can go down. So there's little lights, or there's
Oh,
little light,
cracks.
or no, bars of light that
Hmm.
come down and illuminate the actors' faces, and
Mm.
it just sort of it shows to that grungy feel. The floor is dirt. The animal or the horses are kept at the same place that everybody's drinking, and everybody looks really dirty. So
Yeah.
it also kind of reminded me of that, where everything is just dirty. It's not pristine. You know,
Yeah.
it is a stark contrast between films like, what is it, Gravity and Interstellar,
Yeah.
and Cowboy Bebop. The other two are very clean. Cowboy Bebop is dirty.
Yeah.
It has
Oh,
a
yeah.
much more realistic tone to it, which I enjoyed
Yeah.
immensely.
I kind of agree. I kind of agree with that too.
Yeah.
And what was I gonna say? But yeah, I agree with what you said. Yeah, it has that grudginess. It feels more real. And also, if you think about it too, the way it pokes at the Western tropes and like the way you really know it's true, or like it gives that true feeling when at the very first episode when Spike and Jet are hunting down that drug dealer and they're in Tijuana, out of all
Mm.
places, they're in Tijuana. And the way they chase them, the way the streets of Tijuana look, the way the tavern looks, the dirty old man, the dust up in the air, the dirt, the very old clay building,
Yeah.
and that one bar scene, the bar shootout. That's what I really enjoyed, and that's what gave it that sort of realness to it.
Mm.
So I really enjoyed that, and honestly, I just love Cowboy Bebop. I could go on talking about it forever, just dissecting little things about it. But yeah, that's like Spike Spiegel, and that's the Western tropes, and now the noir. Faye Valentine. Let's good. Let's dig a little deep into her, and also Jet Black. They both have that noirist feeling to it.
They do have a lot of nuance to them. So, like I said, Faith Valentine definitely reminded me of a classic femme fatale,
Yeah.
which I really enjoyed, which was actually introduced by the film Double Indemnity, uh,
Hmm.
which, for anybody that wants to watch that, it's also a great black and white noir film too. But she definitely represented to me that, and also the sort of duality of femme fatale, that they're they're gonna get you killed, but at the same time they have their own dark history and why
Yeah.
they're doing everything. And you learn progressively through the series that Faye Valentine was before the gate accident that happened on the moon that destroyed Earth.
Hmm.
She lived she lived during that time, and was cryogenically frozen due to an accident on a spaceship. Was awoken 3 years before the start of the show, so 2068,
Yeah.
and remembers nothing of her past. But slowly
Hmm.
she figures out, and she finds out who she was before, and finds out that
Yeah.
even though she knows who she was before,
There's
there's
nothing. There's no
there's
record
nothing.
of her ever again.
Yeah, there's nothing for her anymore.
Yeah.
That it was there, but she can't ever go back to it.
Yeah, and that's why I want to get into it. But I feel like after we talk about Jet and Faye individually, because
Mhm.
all three characters have in common is that they're stuck in time. They're stuck in the past, or they're looking for the past. And what I really like Spike's when Spike tells Valentine the past is useless. Like it's better to focus on the present now. And then at the end of the show, when Faye tells Spike, you once told me that the past didn't matter, but why are you doing this? Why are you going back to confront your past? And honestly, it's just when he says one of the coolest. quotes I've ever heard when he's just like, "I'm not going there to die. I'm going there to see if I'm actually alive." I was just like, oh, like
Ooh,
oof, the baddest
ooh.
thing you could ever
I'm
say.
I'm remembering it right now.
Yeah, no, but yeah. Anyway, back to it. But I just wanted to point that out that they all three have one thing in common, except for Ein, because he lives in the present, which is kind of a contrast to the other three characters. But continue on. Yeah, Faye Valentine. The way she
Valentine,
finds
yeah.
out the Noir film, the Femme Fatale, the way she uses. She's not afraid to use her body to get what she wants. In the episode of Heavy Metal Queen, when she thought she had Decker, the truck driver, and the dude she wrongly accused was just like, "What, you want to get some?" She's like, "No, I'm more the person that gives some." And then out of nowhere, she just pulls a gun to his jaw and be like, "Show me the tattoo." And that's really what femme fatale really is. You know, they use their sexuality, not only their sexuality, but they have a killer instinct as well. They're killer, and I really enjoyed that about her as well because it really played into that. And I just want to ask one question: what's up with girls in the future not wearing bras?